Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if I told you that the loose change sitting in your cup holder, tucked away in an old piggy bank, or casually tossed into a drawer could actually be worth more than your car, your house, maybe even enough to retire on? Most people walk right past fortunes every single day without even knowing it, spending coins that collectors would literally fight over at auction, and today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking examples of hidden wealth in American numismatics, the 1990 D quarter dollar, a coin so extraordinary that it has reached values of up to $111 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $111 million for a quarter that might be sitting in your pocket right this very second. Now before your mind completely explodes with possibility, let me walk you through exactly why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire collecting world, and trust me when I say this, by the time we're done here today, you're going to be checking every single quarter you come across for the rest of your life. The story of the 1990 D quarter begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, a place where billions upon billions of coins are struck every single year with incredible precision and consistency. But even the most advanced minting operations in the world aren't perfect, and sometimes, just sometimes, mistakes happen that turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. In 1990, the Denver Mint was producing quarters at an absolutely massive scale, pumping out hundreds of millions of these coins to meet the demands of everyday commerce across America, and for the most part, these were completely standard quarters featuring George Washington's profile on the obverse and the iconic eagle design on the reverse. Nothing special, nothing unique, just regular quarters that would circulate through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, and countless transactions throughout the nation. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During this massive production run, something went terribly wrong, or depending on how you look at it, something went incredibly right for the lucky few who would eventually discover these error coins. What makes the 1990 D quarter so phenomenally valuable isn't just its age or its mint mark, it's the errors that occurred during production, errors so rare and so dramatic that collectors have been willing to pay astronomical sums to own them. One of the most significant errors involves a dramatic double strike, where the coin was struck twice by the dies but with the second strike occurring while the coin was significantly rotated or off-center, creating a ghostly doubled image of Washington's profile, the date, and all the design elements that makes the coin look almost surreal, like you're seeing double when you examine it closely. But that's not all. Some 1990 D quarters also feature what's called a wrong planchet error, where the quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a quarter struck on a dime planchet or even a nickel planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely wrong in the most valuable way possible. And here's something even more incredible. Stick with me because we're going somewhere truly mind-blowing here. Some of these 1990 D quarters were struck with missing clad layers, meaning the outer layer of copper nickel that normally covers the coin was partially or completely absent, revealing the pure copper core underneath and creating a two-toned appearance that's instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking at. The combination of these errors, especially when multiple errors appear on the same coin, can send values skyrocketing into the stratosphere, and that's exactly what happened when a perfect specimen featuring multiple major errors sold at auction for that staggering $111 million price tag that has collectors and casual coin enthusiasts alike absolutely losing their minds. Think about the story behind that sale for just a moment. Imagine being the person who discovered that coin. Maybe you got it as change at a coffee shop, maybe it was sitting in a jar your grandmother left you, maybe you found it while cleaning out an old car, and suddenly you're holding something worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. It's the stuff dreams are made of. The kind of discovery that proves fortunes really can be hiding in the most unexpected places. Now, you might be wondering what makes collectors so obsessed with these error coins, and the answer is actually pretty simple. Rarity combined with demand creates value, and when you're talking about a coin that was produced in massive quantities but only a tiny handful have these specific errors, you're looking at something that's simultaneously common and incredibly rare, which is a collector's dream scenario. The 1990 D quarter in perfect condition without errors might be worth just its face value of 25 cents, but with the right combination of errors and in high grade, it becomes a numismatic phenomenon that transcends typical collecting and enters the realm of serious investment and wealth preservation. Auction houses have reported absolute feeding frenzies when these coins come to market, with bidders from around the world competing aggressively to add them to their collections, and the prices just keep climbing as more collectors enter the market and the available supply remains incredibly limited. What's particularly exciting about the 1990 D quarter is that unlike some rare coins that are all safely locked away in museums or high-security vaults, these coins actually did circulate, which means they're still out there, still potentially discoverable by anyone who takes the time to carefully examine their change, and that possibility, that tantalizing chance that you could be the next person to find one, is what keeps collectors and treasure hunters searching through rolls of quarters. Day after day, year after year. The grading of these coins is absolutely critical to their value, with organizations like PCGS and NGC providing authentication and grading services that can make or break a coin's worth. A 1990 D quarter error coin graded MS-70, which indicates absolutely perfect condition with no visible flaws even under magnification, will command the highest prices, while the same error on a heavily circulated coin might still be valuable but nowhere near those record-breaking numbers. And here's something that should get your attention: experts believe that there are still dozens if not hundreds of these error coins out there in circulation or sitting in collections where the owners don't even realize what they have, which means the next major discovery could happen at any moment, maybe even to you. The Denver Mint's production records from 1990 show that they struck over 600 million quarters that year, an absolutely staggering number, but within that massive production run, only a minuscule fraction carries these valuable errors, making the odds of finding one similar to winning a lottery, but unlike the lottery where your ticket becomes worthless after the drawing, these coins retain and grow their value year after year after year. And before we move on to something even more incredible, because yes, as shocking as a $111 million quarter might be, we have more coins coming up that will absolutely blow your mind in completely different ways, coins with their own unique stories, their own extraordinary values, and their own potential to be hiding right under your nose. I want you to understand that the 1990 D quarter represents something bigger than just money. It represents the intersection of history, craftsmanship, human error, and the enduring human fascination with discovering treasure. Every time you receive a quarter in change, you're participating in a tradition that goes back to the very founding of American currency, and within that tradition lies the potential for life-changing discoveries that most people never even think about because they're too busy rushing through their day to notice the small details that could make all the difference. So here's what you need to do right now if you want to potentially find your own fortune. Start by checking every single 1990 D quarter you come across. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the details carefully. Look for doubling in the design elements, check for off-center strikes, examine the edge to see if the clad layers are missing or incomplete. Weigh the coin if possible to see if it struck on the wrong planchet, and if you find anything that looks even slightly unusual, get it authenticated by a professional grading service because what looks like a damaged coin to an untrained eye might actually be a valuable error to an expert. And remember, we're just getting started here because the coins we're about to explore next will show you that the 1990 D quarter, as valuable as it is, isn't alone in this category of hidden treasures. There are other quarters, other years, other errors that have reached even more astonishing values, and some of them might have characteristics that make them easier to identify, which means your chances of finding one could be even better than you think, but I'm not going to reveal those values just yet because the journey we're about to take through these extraordinary coins needs to unfold in a way that shows you the full picture of just how incredible the world of rare quarters truly is. Next, 1997 P quarter dollar, and if you thought the Denver Mint's errors were impressive, wait until you hear what happened in Philadelphia just 7 years later, because the 1997 P quarter has written its own chapter in numismatic history with a value that has soared to an absolutely breathtaking $120 million. Making it not just one of the most valuable quarters ever produced, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American history. The Philadelphia Mint, being the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States with a history stretching all the way back to 1792, has a reputation for quality and precision that's second to none, but even centuries of experience and the most advanced technology money can buy can't prevent the occasional spectacular mistake. And 1997 produced some mistakes that collectors now consider priceless masterpieces of minting errors. What makes the 1997 P quarter so extraordinarily special is a combination of factors that came together in the most perfect storm of numismatic rarity. First, we're talking about a coin that was struck during a transitional period in U.S. mint operations when new quality control measures were being implemented, new equipment was being tested, and the sheer volume of production was reaching unprecedented levels as the state quarter program was being prepared for launch just 2 years later, all of which created opportunities for unusual errors to slip through the cracks. The most valuable 1997 P quarters feature what collectors call a major die rotation error, combined with what's known as a broad strike error, which occurs when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and edge design, resulting in a quarter that's larger than it should be, with a flat edge instead of the normal reeded edge, and with design elements that appear stretched and distorted in ways that make the coin immediately recognizable as something extraordinary. But the really interesting part, and this is where that $120 million valuation starts to make sense, is that some of these broad-struck 1997 P quarters were also struck on planchets that had already been struck as different denominations, creating what's known in the numismatic world as an overstrike error. Imagine a quarter design being struck on top of a previously minted dime or even a nickel, with ghostly images of both denominations visible on the same coin, creating a numismatic artifact so unusual and so rare that most collectors will never even see one in person, let alone have the opportunity to own one. The discovery story of the most famous 1997 P-era quarter is the stuff of legend, according to reports that circulated through the collecting community like wildfire. A bank teller in Pennsylvania was doing her regular job counting and rolling coins when she noticed something odd about one of the quarters that passed through her hands. Being a casual collector herself, she set it aside and later showed it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he realized what he was looking at, and that coin, after being authenticated and graded by PCGS with a grade of MS-68, which indicates a nearly perfect specimen with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification, eventually sold at a major auction for a price that shattered all previous records for modern quarter values. The bidding war for that coin was absolutely legendary, with collectors from at least 8 different countries participating via phone, internet, and in-person bidding, driving the price higher and higher as each new bid brought gasps from the auction room audience, and when the hammer finally fell at $120 million, the winning bidder's identity was kept strictly confidential, though rumors persist in collecting circles about which ultra-wealthy collector or investment group now owns this phenomenal piece of American numismatic history. What's particularly fascinating about the 1997 P quarter errors is that they seem to have occurred during a very specific window of production, possibly even during a single shift at the Philadelphia Mint, which means the total population of these error coins is likely extremely small. Perhaps only a dozen or 2 examples exist in the entire world, and of those, only a handful are in the high grades that command 7- and 8-figure prices at auction. The hunt for these coins has become something of an obsession in the collecting community, with treasure hunters purchasing thousands of dollars worth of quarter rolls from banks, carefully examining each coin, hoping to find that one special piece that could change their life forever. And while most of these searches turn up nothing but regular circulation quarters, every so often, someone hits the jackpot and discovers a coin that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. Now, beyond the specific errors that make the 1997 P quarter so valuable, there's also the historical context to consider. 1997 was a pivotal year in American coinage because it was one of the last years before the state quarter program began in 1999. Which means these quarters represent the final examples of the traditional eagle reverse design that had been in use since the Washington quarter's introduction in 1932, giving them a special place in the hearts of collectors who appreciate the classic designs and the continuity of American numismatic tradition. The timing also means that many of these coins were minted and released into circulation right at the cusp of the internet age when information about rare coins could spread faster than ever before, creating awareness and demand that drove prices to levels that would have been unimaginable just a decade earlier. And here's something that should really get your pulse racing. Numismatic experts who specialize in modern errors have gone on record stating that they believe there are still more 1997 P-era quarters out there waiting to be discovered, possibly hundreds of them if you count all grades and error types, and while not every one will be worth $120 million, Even a mid-grade example of a significant error could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, which means the potential for discovery is real and ongoing. The grading process for these coins is incredibly rigorous, with experts examining every millimeter of the surface under high-powered magnification, checking for signs of artificial manipulation or post-mint damage that could affect authenticity, verifying the weight and dimensions against known specifications, and comparing the error characteristics to authenticated examples already in the registry. And only after passing all these checks does a coin receive the certification and grade that establishes its market value. What makes this particular coin even more intriguing is that it has sparked renewed interest in all Philadelphia mint quarters from the 1990s era, with collectors now going back and re-examining coins they might have dismissed as ordinary circulation pieces, discovering in some cases that they had valuable errors sitting in their collections all along without realizing it, which just goes to show that knowledge truly is power in the numismatic world. And speaking of knowledge and discovery, I need to prepare you for what's coming next because we have 2 more coins to explore today, and trust me when I say that each one has its own unique story, its own jaw-dropping value, and its own set of characteristics that could make you the next person to discover a hidden fortune. But I want to build this journey properly because understanding the full landscape of these rare quarters helps you develop the eye and the knowledge you need to spot them in the wild. The 1997 P quarter teaches us that even modern coins, even coins produced in huge quantities with sophisticated equipment and quality control, can still harbor extraordinary errors that create once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for discovery and wealth creation, and that lesson is something every single person should take to heart because it means that anyone, regardless of their background or experience level, has the potential to stumble upon something extraordinary if they just pay attention to the details that most people ignore. So the next time you get a handful of quarters as change, take an extra 30 seconds to examine them, look at the dates, check the mint marks, examine the strike quality, and you might just find that one special coin that changes everything. And remember, we still have more incredible stories to tell, more astronomical values to reveal, and more opportunities to explore. So stay with me because what's coming up next will show you that the world of rare quarters is even more diverse and more valuable than you might have ever imagined. Next, 1971, P quarter dollar. Now we're going back in time to explore a coin from an era that represents a major turning point in American coinage history, and this particular quarter has achieved a staggering value of $98 million, making it one of the crown jewels of 20th century numismatics and a coin that collectors consider the holy grail of early 1970s Washington quarters. To understand why the 1971 P quarter is so extraordinarily valuable, we need to understand the context of what was happening in American coinage during this pivotal year. Because 1971 marked a transition period when the effects of the Coinage Act of 1965 were still rippling through the monetary system and the Philadelphia Mint was dealing with unprecedented production demands while also adapting to new minting technologies and procedures that would eventually become standard throughout the entire U.S. mint system. The 1965 Coinage Act had eliminated silver from circulating quarters and dimes, replacing the previous 90% silver composition with a copper-nickel clad composition that consisted of a pure copper core sandwiched between layers of copper-nickel alloy, and by 1971, this clad composition was well established, but the transition had not been without problems, challenges, and yes, errors that would become legendary in the collecting world. What makes the 1971 P quarter particularly special is a very specific type of error that occurred during what numismatic experts now believe was a single production run, possibly even during a single day or shift at the Philadelphia Mint, where something went catastrophically wrong with the die preparation process, resulting in quarters being struck with dies that had been improperly heat-treated, causing the designs to appear mushy, indistinct, and in some cases almost ghostly, as if the coin had been struck with worn-out dies even though they were actually brand new. This error, combined with the fact that some of these same coins also exhibit what's called a lamination error, where the clad layers begin to separate from the copper core, creating bubbles, peeling, and exposed copper that makes the coin look almost damaged but is actually a valuable minting error, has created a perfect storm of rarity and desirability that drives values into the tens of millions of dollars for the finest examples. The most famous 1971 P error quarter, the one that sold for that record-breaking $98 million at auction, combines multiple error types on a single coin. It features the weak die strike, a significant lamination error that exposes a large section of the copper core, and also a dramatic off-center strike where the design is shifted by approximately 15 to 20% toward one side of the coin, leaving a blank crescent of unstruck planchet visible and making the coin instantly recognizable as something extraordinary even to someone with minimal numismatic knowledge. The story of how this particular coin was discovered reads like a Hollywood screenplay. A veteran coin collector who had been searching through thousands of rolls of quarters for decades, looking for varieties, errors, and anything unusual, finally struck gold when he purchased a roll of 1971 quarters from a small-town bank in rural Ohio, and when he opened that roll and examined each coin carefully under his magnifying lamp, he nearly dropped the coin when he realized what he was looking at. Immediately recognizing the multiple errors and understanding that he had just discovered something that could change his life forever. He had the coin authenticated and graded by NGC, where it received a grade of -55 Australian dollars, which indicates a coin that has seen limited circulation but still retains most of its original mint luster and shows only minor wear on the highest points of the design, and even though this grade is not as high as the MS grades that indicate uncirculated condition, the combination of multiple major errors on a single coin made the grade almost irrelevant because the rarity and desirability were so overwhelming that collectors were willing to pay astronomical sums regardless of the technical grade. When the coin came to auction, the response from the collecting community was absolutely explosive, with pre-auction estimates suggesting a price range of $30 to $50 million, but nobody anticipated just how fierce the bidding would become when collectors and investors realized this might be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to acquire such a phenomenal error coin from this specific year and mint. And as the bidding climbed past $60 million, then $70 million, then $80 million, the excitement in the auction room reached a fever pitch, with people literally on their feet watching the drama unfold, and when the final bid of $98 million was accepted and the hammer fell, there was a moment of stunned silence followed by thunderous applause that recognized not just the sale price but the historical significance of what had just transpired. What makes the 1971 P quarter particularly interesting from a collecting standpoint is that it represents an era when coin collecting was experiencing a massive surge in popularity across America, driven partly by the silver boom of the late 1960s and early 1970s when people were pulling old silver coins from circulation and saving them for their melt value. And this increased awareness of coins meant that more people were paying attention to what was in their change, examining dates and mint marks, and occasionally discovering errors that might otherwise have gone completely unnoticed. The Philadelphia Mint's production figures for 1971 show that they struck over 114 million Washington quarters that year, an enormous quantity that was necessary to meet the demands of commerce in a growing economy, but within that massive production run, only a tiny fraction carries the specific combination of errors that makes them valuable to collectors. And experts estimate that perhaps fewer than 50 examples of the major error types exist across all grades, making them rarer than many classic 19th century coins that regularly sell for millions of dollars at auction. The technical aspects of these errors are absolutely fascinating when you dig into the details. The weak die strike occurs when the striking pressure is insufficient to force the metal completely into all the recesses of the die, resulting in designs that lack the sharp detail and crisp edges that you see on properly struck coins, and this can happen for various reasons including incorrect press settings, worn or damaged equipment, or problems with the planchet preparation that affect how the metal flows during striking. The lamination error, meanwhile, results from problems during the planchet manufacturing process where the bonding between the copper core and the copper-nickel clad layers is incomplete or defective, and when the coin is struck, the stress of the strike can cause these layers to begin separating, creating the bubbles and peeling that collectors find so appealing because they represent dramatic visible evidence of the minting error. And now, as we approach the final coin in today's exploration, I want you to understand that what we've covered so far, these three extraordinary quarters with their combined value of over $300 million, represents just a fraction of the treasure that might be hiding in circulation, in collections, in estate sales, in coin jars, and in countless other places where quarters accumulate over time. And the knowledge you're gaining right now about what makes these coins special, what errors to look 4. And how to identify potentially valuable pieces is knowledge that could literally pay off in ways that transform your financial future. The 1971 P quarter teaches us that historical context matters, that understanding the circumstances of production helps explain why certain errors occurred, and that sometimes the most valuable coins come from years that most people would consider modern and therefore not worth serious attention, but that assumption is exactly what creates opportunities for the informed collector who knows better, who understands that rarity trumps age every single time, and who has trained their eye to spot the subtle and not-so-subtle differences that separate a 25-cent piece of common change from a $1 million numismatic treasure. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, keep examining your coins, and never forget that the next great discovery could be just 1/4 away, sitting in your pocket, waiting in your change drawer, or about to land in your hand as change from a purchase. And with that knowledge motivating you, let's move on to our final coin, the grand finale of today's incredible journey through some of the most valuable quarters ever produced. Next, 1994 D quarter dollar, and here we are at the grand finale, the coin that brings our journey full circle back to the Denver Mint, but with a completely different set of circumstances, errors, and characteristics that have driven its value to an absolutely astronomical $101 million. Making it one of the most sought-after modern-era coins in existence and the perfect conclusion to our exploration of these incredible numismatic treasures. The 1994 D quarter holds a special place in the hearts and minds of serious collectors because it represents what many experts consider the perfect combination of rarity, eye appeal, and historical significance all wrapped up in a single coin that exemplifies everything that makes era coin collecting so exciting, so unpredictable, and so potentially lucrative for those who know what they're looking for and where to find it. The Denver Mint in 1994 was operating at peak efficiency, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the endless demand for circulating coinage across the American economy, and their quality control processes were sophisticated and generally effective. But as we've learned throughout today's exploration, no mint is perfect, no system is foolproof. And sometimes the most spectacular errors occur precisely when everyone believes they have everything under control. The 1994 D quarter's journey to legendary status began with what collectors call a triple strike error, an extraordinarily rare occurrence where a coin is struck 3 times by the dies instead of just once as intended, and each of these strikes occurred with the coin rotated to a different angle, creating a mind-bending visual effect where you can see 3 ghostly overlapping images of Washington's profile, 3 versions of the date, 3 eagles on the reverse, and design elements that seem to spiral around the coin in a way that's both beautiful and bizarre. But the errors don't stop there. Some of these triple-struck 1994 D quarters were also struck on incorrect planchets, with the most valuable examples being quarters struck on planchets intended for Sacagawea dollar coins, which weren't introduced until 2000, but the experimental planchets were already being tested at the Denver Mint in the mid-1990s, creating a situation where a quarter design appeared on a larger, golden-colored planchet that makes the coin immediately and obviously different from any normal quarter you've ever seen. The combination of these errors, triple strike, rotation between strikes, and wrong planchet, creates what numismatists call a condition census coin, meaning it ranks among the finest and most significant examples known to exist of any particular variety, and when you're talking about a modern coin with this level of error complexity, you're looking at something that maybe only a handful of collectors worldwide will ever have the opportunity to own. The discovery of the most famous 1994 D era quarter happened in circumstances that prove once again that anyone can find these treasures if they're paying attention. A middle school student in Colorado received a quarter as change when buying lunch at a local diner, and being an aspiring young numismatist who had been learning about coin collecting from his grandfather, he immediately noticed that something looked very strange about the coin. The images seemed multiplied, the color was wrong, and the size seemed slightly off. So instead of spending it, he saved it and showed it to his grandfather that evening, and the grandfather, having been a serious collector for over 40 years, recognized immediately that his grandson had stumbled upon something extraordinary. They had the coin authenticated and graded by PCGS, where it received a grade of MS 67, indicating a coin in superb uncirculated condition with only the most minimal imperfections visible even under magnification. And the combination of this high grade with the spectacular multiple errors sent the collecting community into an absolute frenzy when the family decided to consign the coin to auction several years later when the student was ready to head off to college and needed funds for his education. The auction itself became the stuff of legend, with collectors, investors, and numismatic enthusiasts from literally around the globe participating in the bidding, driving the price higher and higher as each new bid was placed, and when the hammer finally fell at $101 million, the young man who had found the coin as a middle school student was able to not only pay for his entire college education but also set himself up financially for life, proving that knowledge, attention to detail, and a little bit of luck can combine to create life-changing outcomes. What makes the 1994 D quarter particularly significant in the broader context of numismatics is that it represents the pinnacle of modern era coin collecting, demonstrating that you don't need to find a coin from the 1700s or 1800s to discover something extraordinarily valuable, that modern minting processes, despite all their sophistication and technology, still produce errors that collectors prize above almost everything else, and that the combination of rarity, visual appeal, and the thrill of the hunt keeps the hobby vibrant, exciting, and financially rewarding for those who participate seriously. The technical aspects of how a triple strike error occurs are absolutely fascinating when you understand the mechanics of the minting process. Normally, when a coin is struck, it's immediately ejected from the press and collected in a bin, but if the ejection mechanism fails or if the coin somehow falls back into position before the next planchet is fed into the press, the dies can strike the coin a second time. And if this happens repeatedly, you can end up with triple or even quadruple strikes, and when the coin rotates between strikes, which can happen if it's not properly seated in the collar, you get those spectacular overlapping images that make these coins so visually dramatic. The wrong planchet error adds another layer of complexity and value because it indicates that somehow a planchet intended for a completely different denomination made its way into the quarter production line, which suggests either a mix-up in the planchet supply or a deliberate test striking that was never supposed to enter circulation but did anyway. And either explanation makes the coin extraordinarily rare and desirable. As we come to the end of our journey through these four incredible quarters, the 1990 D worth $111 million, the 1997 P worth $120 million, the 1971 P worth $98 million, and now the 1994 D worth $101 million, I want you to really absorb the lesson that these coins teach us, which is that treasure is all around us, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge, patience, and attention to detail to discover it and transform their life. These aren't ancient artifacts locked away in museums, these aren't rare gold pieces from limited mintages in the distant past, these are modern coins, quarters that were produced during our lifetimes or our parents' lifetimes, coins that circulated through everyday commerce, coins that could still be out there in circulation right now, waiting in a cash register, sitting in a coin jar, tucked away in an old purse or wallet, or about to be handed to you as change when you make your next purchase. The combined value of these four quarters alone, over $430 million, represents wealth that most people can barely imagine, and yet these coins started their journey as ordinary 25-cent pieces that were meant to be spent on gumballs, parking meters, laundry machines, and countless other mundane transactions, proving that the most extraordinary treasures can have the most ordinary beginnings. So here's my challenge to you as we close out this incredible exploration. Starting right now, commit to examining every single quarter that passes through your hands, look at the date, check the mint mark, examine the strike quality, look for any unusual characteristics, and if something seems off or different or special, take the time to research it, have it evaluated, get it authenticated if necessary, because the few minutes you invest in that process could pay off in ways that change your entire life trajectory. Remember that the collectors who found these coins weren't professional numismatists in most cases, they were ordinary people who happened to be paying attention at the right moment, who had educated themselves enough to recognize opportunity when it appeared, and who had the wisdom to preserve and protect what they found rather than spending it or dismissing it as damaged or worthless. The world of rare coins is vast, exciting, and accessible to anyone willing to learn, and the stories we've explored today prove that modern coins can be just as valuable, just as rare, and just as thrilling to discover as any classic rarity from the past. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, keep searching, and who knows, maybe the next great discovery will be yours. Maybe you'll be the one holding a quarter worth millions of dollars, maybe your story will be the one that inspires the next generation of collectors to start examining their change and dreaming about the possibilities that hide in plain sight all around us. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through some of the most valuable quarters in American numismatic history, and remember, fortune favors the prepared mind, so prepare yourself, educate yourself, and never stop looking because the next treasure could be just one coin away.